This is my view of Dr. Stone Reboot, Chapter 4, Humanity's Return to Mother Earth. And before I get anything else, I think this chapter might answer one of the biggest questions of Dr. Stone, the why man. For those of you who don't know, once Senku gets out to sea with a radio, he hears a signal over and over again, Morse code, W-H-Y, 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 over and over and over again. Why? Senku at the time believes that this person, this being, this entity, whoever they are, is the one responsible for the petrification, responsible for all this happening to Earth, but I don't think that's the case anymore. I think the why man is Ray, the robot. Now that might sound like absolute freaking insane thing I've ever said in my entire life, but let's think about this for a second. So Ray was left in the space shuttle, but Byakuya promised him that he'd find a way to come back. He'd find a way to get back to him, to see his old friend again. And even though they know it's not true and the space shuttle is going to fall in a year. As he says, I know, and yet until the bitter end, I want Ray to be able to rest easy. After all, Ray did so much for our sake. And so the absolute last shot is Ray in the space shuttle, orbiting Earth when he was about a year before it crashes into the ground. I think Ray survived all this time. So let's say he did crash into the ground. I don't think it would have been absolutely and completely destroyed. I mean, these things are built fairly tough. Yes, re-entry would definitely burn up and destroy most of the contents, knock around quite a bit, but I think he could have survived the impact. And then he is literally surrounded by a giant freaking tub of electronics that he can use to upgrade himself, to rebuild himself, to make him bigger, better, stronger, smarter. And from there, he found a way to keep doing that, to keep repairing his broken bits. Maybe he managed to make his way to a research facility where there's other robots he was able to take control of, use them to maintain himself, to keep things clean, organized, to mine new electronics from the ground or something. I think Ray is still alive somewhere out there. And what's more, I think he still believes Byakuya and all his friends are still alive. The series went out of its way last chapter to reveal to us that Ray does not understand human life expectancy, the range of human life. He thought the one girl was 1,000 years old, so wouldn't it make sense that after 3,000 years, he still thinks Byakuya is coming back to find him, still looking for him? I think that makes sense, and I think when, he finally heard a radio signal, he kept asking, why did it take you so long to return my call to come find me? And they can only, when he finds out that it's not Byakuya making that call, he's like, oh, then I don't care about you anymore. I'm going to go back to waiting for my friend to come back and save me. So yeah, that's my theory. Ray is the why man. He's, well, I said on Earth, but yeah, it doesn't really make much sense. He could have figured out a way to survive in space. I mean, there's no way he could get enough fuel to, stay up there for several thousand years. So I'm just thinking the satellite crashed. He's scavenging for parts, used it to upgrade himself, and has just been waiting for his friend, constantly repairing himself so they'd be ready for his friends when they show up. I mean, if that's the case, this is going to be such an amazing reveal when we finally get it, because Senku's going to find not just a fully formed AI, but likely an entire city of robots that are constantly repairing and upgrading themselves, and such advanced technology that Senku can literally go to space within months or years after that. I think it'd be such a cool plot twist. But yeah, that's just my thoughts. Anything about all of that down below. Let's get into the actual, stuff that happened this chapter instead of the crazy speculation. So the Soyuz capsule fails spectacularly, lands several 100 kilometers away from the beach they were actually going towards, and flips upside down. So yeah, they're basically screwed. Byakuya starts planning on how to, fix all this, but then he passes out, which felt like a very inconvenient time to do that, but you can't forget that he has quite literally been awake for 60, 70, 80 hours at this point. I mean, every time everyone else goes to sleep or rest or whatever, you see him, still floating around thinking, trying to solve things, trying to figure out the best way to do things. So yeah, this is literally the first time he slept in, like I said, 60, 70 hours. And he wakes up 2 hours later and tries to figure out the entire situation. Essentially, they have 4 hours to launch out their own Soyuz capsule. They will lose the weather satellite, and they'll be essentially stuck in space. And in 8 hours, Lillian, Shamil, and Connie are going to suffocate and die. So yeah, basically they have two options here. One, they can make some crazy attempt to try and rescue their friends, or 2, they can go to Japan where they can likely, find a way to undo the petrification and save billions and billions of lives. Again, these are scientists. I feel like they should be making better decisions than this, but they decided to save their friends, which is just really painful for Byakuya because he realizes here and now that by doing this, he's essentially giving up any hope of ever seeing his son again. Though, as he says, he just can't give up on his friends, so yeah, another heartfelt emotional decision that ends up dooming all of humanity for a few billion years. Huzzah! All this also just makes me wonder, though, how the freak did the people from Ishigami Village get to Ishigami Village? Because, I mean, like you said, they are several hundred kilometers away from Japan. So how the heck they got, anywhere even close to the main shore, close enough for Senku to find them within a few days of walking, is absolutely ridiculous and insane. I'm really hoping at some point we get just a little explanation on that, like how the freak they made this, how they survived that. And, I mean, they also seem fairly convinced they were going to, survive it because they took the gravestones of the elders and the priestess who knew all the 100 tales that they've been using to keep themselves alive. So this wasn't just like hey, let's try and do this, see what happens. This was we're 100% going to make it. So, interesting. Anyway, so they have their plan. They're going to crash land near the island, swim to the island if they're too far away, and then either find or build a raft and use it to go save the rest of them. But the change they're making to the calculations this time is that the space station itself is going to be a variable. By using up all the remaining fuel, they can move it to the point where they can get a better trajectory to increase their odds of not dying. Though this is going to require them to accelerate a space station that weighs more than 50 buses to 130 kilometers an hour, which, yeah, that's certainly not easy, and essentially requires them to burn up all the remaining fuel. So, this is their last shot to actually get this done. And, of course, poor little Ray is being worked half to death as his cooling system is at full blast. Oh, poor Ray. But they managed to get the correct position in, and they're ready to go to Earth, though once more, Byakuya is reminded that he is never going to see his son again. Like, literally never. It's physically impossible. But Byakuya has to admit, in his position, Senku would do the exact same thing. He would work to find a way to save his friends, no matter the risk to himself, even if it hurt him personally, or nearly killed him, like, when he let his own neck be broken. Then we get the fond farewell with Ray, who is convinced that, Byakuya is coming back for him at some point, which, again, is confirmation to me that Ray is the Y-Man, but again, that's just my crazy crackpot theory. Let me think about that down below. Yeah, next chapter is going to be them, actually landing on the island, then taking the boat all the way to go rescue them. There's a lot of details there I'm very curious to see, but then after that is going to be really interesting, because that's all stuff, we never saw before. How they survived, what they ate, what was life like, what technology they have, how did they craft the 100 tales. So much little things, that could be added in. I think that would be really interesting to say. But yeah, that was my review. Let me think down below. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next video. And until then,
peace.